This is the third short lecture from Chapter 1 in your textbook, and in this lecture we're going to talk about some communication models. So the first model or communication process that we need to discuss is what's known as the COO approach. Now, according to your book, the easiest way to understand this is the idea that it's communication that makes an organization. So your book puts it this way: communication activities, right? Communicating. Communication activities are the basic defining stuff of organizational life. So organizations only exist because we communicate. And this communication creates complex systems of meaning. And this meaning, these systems of meaning, are what we call organizations. So the real idea behind the COO approach is that it's communication, the act of communicating, that actually makes the organization. It's the content. It's the stuff of the organization. Now, communication activities within the organization are both made possible and constrained by institutionalized rules and structures. So the way that you're able to communicate in an organization is both enabled by the organization, right? Things like memos, even emails within the organization, meetings, right? These are all things that enable communication. And communication is also constrained or limited by the rules and structures of the organization. So you can't, in the middle of a board meeting, run in and scream, this company sucks, right? Because you'll get fired. So these are ways. So communication, again, both makes or it's the rules and the structures that make communication possible, but it's also those same rules in communication that limit it. Now, according to this viewpoint, it's communication that creates the corporate reality. And so this really sort of represents what we call a meaning-centered approach to an understanding of reality. And this isn't just limited to companies. Right? Even if we look at if we go all the way back to the Bible, John 1:1, right? In the beginning was the Word. So the idea here is that communication constitutes reality, right? Communication, your ability to communicate with other people, shapes your reality. So this isn't to say that it's communication that makes the moon or that makes the computer you're working on. It isn't to say that communication makes objective reality. But it does construct a social reality, right? It constructs the sort of the social terms of your existence, right? And in some ways, words do sort of limit reality, at least, right? I mean, we can't think of things that there aren't words for example, right? So this is all related to this idea of linguistic determinism that some of you are familiar with because you've taken my other courses, right? But again, the COO approach is the idea that communication is what makes an organization. We'll skip this video again. You can watch it on your own time if you like. So if we're going to define communication for the purposes of this course, it's the dynamic, ongoing process of creating and negotiating meanings through interactional symbolic, right? So international symbolic practices are speaking, writing. Then there's nonverbal practices like dress codes. All different kinds of things, right? So let's start again at the top because I interrupted myself. The dynamic, ongoing process of creating and negotiating meanings through interactional symbolic practices, including conversation, metaphors, rituals, stories, dress, and space. So all these things are forms of communication, right? And this is something that we've discussed in other classes. If you've had me before, in interpersonal communication, we talk about the way you dress is a form of communication, right? The way you decorate your space is a form of communication. Rituals, that's something we haven't talked a lot about in other classes. But rituals, things, and usually we think about rituals, we think about like witchcraft or religion, right? But corporations and organizations have rituals all the time. Think about graduation, for example. That's a perfect example of a ritual in an organization, right? And one you're probably looking forward to getting to. So now, finally, we can define organizational communication. So organizational communication is the process of creating and negotiating collective, coordinated systems of meaning through symbolic practices oriented towards the achievement of organizational goals. So let's unpack that, right? It's the process of creating and negotiating collective, meaning for a group, so creating and working on group coordinated systems of meaning through symbolic practices, things like dress, space, language, all those things we just talked about, oriented towards the achievement of organizational goals. So the goal for the whole organization, not for the individual, right? So OrgComm is all about creating and negotiating these systems of meaning through a whole bunch of different practices in an effort to achieve the organization's goals, a common organizational goal. All right, we'll keep this one short. That's it for now.